Welcome to this podcast. It is the Plan It Your Way show where we turn business planning into a fun, jargon-free adventure. I am the owner of Clarity Group, LLC, and the goal of this podcast is to make business planning approachable and enjoyable. And don't worry, we're not here to bury you in buzzwords like synergy or scalability. This is a safe zone. By the end of this series, you'll have a business plan that makes sense, fits your style, and feels more like a roadmap than a homework assignment. What you can expect from this episode. We're going to dive into the concept of a value proposition and how you create that for your business. We're going to highlight the importance of the positioning in your industry and talk a little bit about how you define the strength of your industry and how to really think about the core of your value within that industry and within your local competitive market. First, let's dig into defining value. Think of it like this. Value is the perception that the client gets after experiencing your business. What do I mean by that? Put yourself in their shoes. When you experience a business, let's use a mechanic, for example. When you go there, how do you feel about that experience while it's happening, and how do you feel afterwards? And more than that, what do you tell your friends and family about that experience? Value is all of that encompassed together, and value is really your strongest client acquisition and retention strategy. Now, let me tell you what it's not. Value is not price. And the biggest mistake I see people make when they're trying to define their value to the customer is they try too soon in the process to directly relate that to the price that they're charging the customer. We'll dig into that a little bit more as we go through this podcast, but let's start by just understanding that value is a sentiment, and value is what your customers feel after they have experienced, or even before they experience your business. And just understand that clients evaluate services based on this perceived value, such as the care that they receive, the results that they see, and the trust they feel throughout the process. A strong value proposition helps you differentiate your business, especially in a competitive market. But we're also going to dive a little bit into the concept and definition of competition as we go further down the path of creating a value proposition. Okay, sorry, not sorry, but I do need to bring up a business term in the explanation of this section. We need to talk about value as it relates to your entire industry. So what do I mean by that? As you're Google searching your industry and doing your research on how strong is this particular area for customers, are they spending money on this type of product or service? You're going to see an acronym CAGR, Compounded Annual Growth Rate. Now, what's important for you to understand about a term like this is that it's a broad brush stroke of how healthy an industry is or is expected to be over the current period or upcoming periods of time. So what do I mean by that? How could you define that in a much simpler way? Well, if I look up my industry and it says it has a CAGR of 10% over the next 5 years, what they're saying is if I put $1 in the first year into this industry, there's a likelihood that I would have $1.10 after the first year is complete. It grew by 10%. Does that mean, though, that every business within that industry is going to grow by 10% in that year? No, it does not. And the growth of individual businesses is very much based on the value proposition of that individual business. A CAGR is based across a global view of many, many, many factors across a business and the purchasing patterns of customers. And you'll find that it changes. You might see something published today that says that 10%, and then 2 years later, look it up, and it might say a completely different number because something in the world changed that was either inside or outside of the control of the business or that industry. Usually technology related or some sort of big economic change that happened. Either way, you should not base your confidence in your own business on that stat. That said, if you see a CAGR between, let's say, 3 and 7%, that would indicate it's a fairly slowly growing industry. That might mean it already hit its high and it's kind of slowed down and it's just in kind of a steady existing state. Lots of factors that go into that. If you see a percentage between, let's say, 8 and 12%, that's an industry that's strong and still has opportunities for growth. If you see something that's above 15, 20, 25%, that would indicate it's a very high growth industry. That could mean a lot of things. It could mean it's a flash in the pan and it's not going to grow for very long. It could mean that it's in a steady high growth state for a while. It could mean it had some sort of outside force that made it like this for the time being. A great example of that is COVID. That had a high growth and low growth impact on a lot of different industries. So as you're doing your research for your industry, make sure you know what these acronyms mean. And if you don't, ask somebody. And also, your value does not rely on these acronyms. You should know generally how much customers are flocking to your service type. But where you fall in that percentage growth spectrum is going to be more dependent on how you create value at the local level of your business. So what would you measure on a local level to see value of that business in your local area? Well, it's going to be looking at the reviews for that type of service in your area to see how customers are feeling about the value of that type of business. And there will be good and bad and indifferent, and we all know it's much easier to get a negative review than a positive one. So certainly put your filter on as you're reading through reviews for your area. And also seek out some other industries that may be doing really well right now. And I would encourage you, find industries that are inexpensive, doing well, and what customers are saying and what value they see from those businesses. And then go find industries that are really expensive. No matter what the economy is, people still go there anyway because they see some sort of nearly unexplainable value. Well, you need to read those reviews and see why? Why are they drawn to it when clearly the rest of the economy says, no, don't spend money, but people still want to spend money on that. So put on a very indifferent, impartial lens as you're looking through these things to make sure you understand what's going on across your whole area, not just in your business type, but how are customers reacting to spending money and receiving value across your area in general. And that will be your local metrics on how well your industry and how well the customer experience is going in your local area. Okay, so now's the fun part. Let's create your value proposition. I'm going to give you a few steps to really think about this. And I want to enforce and reinforce throughout this that value does not equal price. Price is a completely different business strategy topic. Right now, we are focused on the value of the product or service that you're providing. So step one, you have to believe in this more than anybody else in the process. Why? Because you own it, and you are likely the provider of the service or the product as well. You're the inventor or maker of the service or product as well. So this is what I'm going to ask you to get over any imposter syndrome or any barriers you have in giving yourself compliments, and get a brag book, a journal. If you prefer the digital version, you can leave yourself voice memos, start some notes, start a document on your phone, on your laptop, wherever works for you, or you can get a physical journal to write down some thoughts about, one, why your skills are perfect for what you're designing, how you have helped people in this area before, or compliments you've received about what you produce or what you provide in the past. why your knowledge on this particular topic is amazing. And I want to call out here, you're not trying to be better than your competitors. You're trying to be great in your own eyes. You're trying to create value from the inside out. So this is not how I'm better than other people. This is just simply why my product or service is valuable and why the way I'm doing it is valuable. So give yourself the permission to brag on yourself a little bit. It's an extremely important part of creating a value proposition for your business. The second thing, and I'm going to keep coming back to this a few times, separate value from price. Understand that value strategy and pricing strategy are completely different things. Price positioning is a different topic that you'll tackle after you understand what your value is to your area, to yourself, to the people or pets or whoever's receiving your service. After you define your value and after you really understand your landscape, after you understand how your customers are interacting with businesses in your landscape, then you can talk about how to position your price and your value within that market. But the first step is really understand the value of what you provide within your market. The next thing is jot down some notes to understand what your client needs from this. And not what we think they need, not theoretically, they need to do this because I said they need to do this, or they need to buy this because I know it's good for them. Walk a mile in your client's shoes. And I would encourage you at this stage is think about businesses that hit the mark or miss the mark with you personally. And that could mean like a trip to the barbershop, a trip to a mechanic, a gym membership, a product that you purchased that had incredible marketing, and then when you got it, you were like, wah, 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 this is not what I expected. Look at your services through a vulnerable client's eyes, maybe somebody who's going to believe you open-ended without asking a lot of questions, and also through the hypercritical, been burned by a lot of businesses' eyes. Because it's important that you walk a mile in the shoes of the receiver of your service to really understand how to create a value that's going to resonate with the person purchasing your service. Rarely is the client going to be more educated on the topic or the product, but what they are educated on is how they're willing to spend their own money and their own time using that product or service or recommending that product or service. So make sure you walk a mile in their shoes and make some notes about that and about your own experiences at other businesses so that you can create an experience that is really great and over the top and hits the mark for what you'd like to do as far as impact in your industry. And then let's create a clear and memorable statement about what communicates your value. And this is really, really close to creating a mission statement. Here's an example. We provide compassionate, results-driven rehabilitation care that helps pets recover faster and live healthier lives. That sounds an awful lot like a mission statement, doesn't it? Well, it kind of is. It's your value mission statement. And it is important after you make these notes that you boil it down to something that simple. What is the thing you want to be known for within your customer base? Now, if the thing you want to be known for is price, then you need to identify with that and write that down. But if the thing you want to be known for is a particular outcome, then identify that at this stage as it is crucial to the development of your value proposition. So here's another fun thing about establishing your value proposition. And within a business plan, there's a section called a market analysis. And within that section, there is something called a competitive analysis. Now, let me give you some thoughts on this. And this is learnings from over 30 years in the business space, and particularly as an entrepreneur and doing research across the whole country for where to place businesses. Your competition is not really competition. And I know that sounds like an odd concept, but hear me out. These are fellow partners in delivering a similar product or service. They're somewhat competitive to you. It is a choice that the customer has, But when you look at the population in an area, and if you're placing a business because there's ample population and ample people to utilize your service or purchase your service, then you need to understand that really it's just about providing choice for the customer and about fitting a particular type of customer that fits the same type of value that you have in the business. You're not trying to capture every single living customer in that area, and it is absolutely okay if they prefer somebody else's way of doing business over yours. That's not a negative thing. And when you do your competitive analysis, I would encourage you to find all the positive things about the businesses that are around you. Find out how you're complementary. Find out if there's a gap and maybe there's a particular thing they don't really want to offer and that you do want to offer. Possibly there's a referral relationship there. Maybe there's a way you can work together on things. And also just experience their service. Give them a call, and not in that cheesy, I'm going to check your prices kind of way, but more in a just discovery call of experiencing their front desk. Go in, feel it, smell the environment, see how it feels relative to what you'd like to create. And it's okay that it's different than yours. In fact, it's okay that it's perceptually better than yours. And you certainly should not put any other businesses down by saying, well, this is not up to my standard. Well, the reality is it doesn't really matter what you think. It matters what the clients think. And if there's lots of clients that like it, then take a step back and say, well, what is it about this business that they like? Are there any things that I'm willing to emulate about this in my plan? Or am I just going after a different type of customer? Because you can't please everybody. You're not trying to fit everybody's needs. You're trying to build a business that fulfills your needs, provides value, and attracts the type of customer that agrees with you on those things. So make your phone calls, drive around, visit, read their Google reviews, and look at their education materials, look at the content on their website, and see, are they trying to create a boutique experience or more of kind of a structured experience? Are their posts on social media super personal with pictures of their team? Are they overly produced? Do they look forced? Do they look natural? And you're going to evaluate that against what you would like to do. Not from the element of, I can be better than this business or I'm going to be worse than this business, but more from, I'm going to complement the rest of what's offered in this community, and I already know the population can support it. So what I'm aiming to do is create something where clients can feel welcomed in the way that I would like to welcome them, and I think they're going to find value from that. Also, get to know your competitors. If there are conferences where you have an opportunity to introduce yourself, or maybe there's a chamber of commerce and you can learn about them there and introduce yourself, there's so much more value in collaboration than there is in competition. Like I said, if you've done your population studies and you know there's plenty to go around, there is absolutely no good reason to have an adversarial relationship with anybody providing the same or similar service in your area. In fact, the stronger you are all together and the more value you all create together, the more you'll draw more trust and more customers into the business in general. So reshape your thinking on competition, and when you're doing your competitive analysis, flip the script a little bit. Find all the good things about the competitors in your market and see who they are. Get to know them a little bit, and then create your value in your way based on your desires, needs, ethics, culture, education, and the outcomes you want to achieve. Don't base your value on what somebody else has already created. Okay, let me pull this all together for you and give you some actionable takeaways on this topic. So value is the foundation of your business. And again, it is not the price of your business. It's how your business will stand out in the community for what it provides to the people that are buying the service or the product. That is the value of your business. The value of your business is is and is not directly related to the strength of your entire industry. There can be pockets that are better and worse across the country or even across a county or a state of an industry showing that it's super strong in one place or maybe not as strong in another. So don't get your hopes necessarily way up or way down based on how the industry is doing as you're designing your business. Really think about value from the perspective of what you know and understand about what clients, the buyers of the service or product, need. The actionable steps that I need you to start doing today to create your value, and you may not have even started your business plan at all, but this is an important first step to really creating the vision for what you want to provide. Start your brag book, whether it's digital or handwritten, doesn't matter, start it. Find the optimism and the positive creativity and find ways to pump yourself up and really appreciate what you're going to offer within this business. Reflect on what makes you unique and how can you communicate that? Is that going to be through the decor of your business? Will it be through the information you provide? How is that going to be communicated through different mediums to get to your client? How will they know that you are a place of value and a service or product of value? And then third, evaluate your local market. And I want to take it way outside the concept of just price shopping your local market. Price is a singular strategy amongst a lot of strategies to designing a business. And what I'd like you to do at this stage is seek a value competitive strategy. What sort of value are your competitors bringing to the client? What are clients expressing needing in that local market from a value perspective? There will be comments about price hidden within there, but seek out the value that they may or may not have experienced in whatever pricing comments you see in your evaluation. It is possible that the reason they're complaining about price is because they did not get a perception of value. So dig into that and allow yourself not to focus on price as a singular concept as you do your competitive analysis. And as a reminder, think of it as a collaborative analysis. You're looking for a way to complement this service offering in your local area to get along with the other people that are providing the service so that you can all collectively, positively influence your industry, because that, after all, is how those fancy CAGR, compounded annual growth rates, get bigger, is when a whole industry comes together to build value so that a client wants to buy more of it and experience more of it. So here's my call to you. Take that time, craft a thoughtful and authentic value proposition that reflects you, your skills, your education, and your ability to convey and provide that value to others. I want to thank you for joining me today as we spoke about value proposition. Please like and subscribe to this podcast series. If you'd like any additional resources, I have lots of them on my website at smallbusiness-dreams.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Please reach out, and I'd love to hear about your business idea. Stay tuned as we discover more amazing ways to think about your business, create value, and create an awesome plan for the future.